Alrighty, welcome back. This is part 3 of the 1971 Cutlass build. So right there you saw me removing all of the old fuel lines. We're actually going to run bigger ones, so we got rid of those. And then I pulled the gas tank off. And of course the bolts were completely seized, so I had to cut them off. After I got the gas tank out, I found something that I really was not expecting. This is a build sheet. They do these for every single car, and it pretty much is just a sheet that has all of the specifications for the vehicle on it. So that as the vehicle goes down the assembly line, the builders know what options are going on the car. So they actually don't really use build sheets anymore. Now they are just the window stickers that are in the car when you purchase it. Okay, so I got the gas tank out. And look what I found. I think this is a build sheet for the car. I'm gonna have to try and clean this up as much as I can so I can see what it is. But that is pretty cool. So that means this gas tank has been there pretty much since it left the factory, which sucks because the owner was told that they replaced this sending unit with a electric fuel pump and a new sending unit. And as you can see, that is the old factory sending unit, but that is actually pretty cool. I have actually never seen one of these or found one of these on a car. That will be my first. I mean, that is some pretty cool history right there. You can see it says Park Price Oldsmobile, Pocatello, Idaho. That's pretty cool. I'm hoping we can clean that up and he'll probably want to keep that. That's pretty awesome. I know when they build these cars in the factory, they hide these sheets around the car. I know on the Corvettes, they hide them in the front frame rails. The Camaros, I know they put them usually on top of the gas tanks. And since this is a Cutlass, I'm guessing it's the same as the Chevelles, or they did the same thing as the Chevelles, and they put it right here on top of the gas tanks. And then you also saw I got most of the fuel line out. I still have a couple more pieces that I have to get out under the rear end. And then we also got the old exhaust cut off. I had to go underneath and get measurements for my drive shafts because we need to order a new one because this is not the drivetrain that was in this car when he got it. So we're gonna get a new drive shaft measured and ordered. And the reason why I pulled off this fuel line was because this header, it's a little bit bigger and the fuel line was actually in the way of the header. And so I had to pull that off. I'm gonna run the fuel line on the other side of the header now. That's okay though, because we're actually going to be running bigger fuel line. And then we're also going to be running a pump inside the tank. Probably going to get a new tank. I'm going to see if the one for the 72 Chevelle that I have outside fits. And if it's the same one, that is a new tank, which would be awesome because then we won't have to buy a fuel tank. Okay, so next thing on our never-ending list is I want to get these headers all the way bolted up. You can see I started on this side, started to get these bolts tight. So let's go under the car and see what problems we're running into. So these are our headers, and you can see they are extremely tight to this lower control arm mount. I know it's not touching, but I still am going to push that piece of the header in a little bit, just because when the motor moves, you don't want it to make contact. So the other part that is making contact is that bracket right there. So we're just gonna mark. I'm gonna pull the headers back out. We're gonna tap in those two spots a little bit. Everywhere else, it looks good though. It's extremely close up here, but I'm super lucky that I don't have to modify any of that. So I'm going to get that modified, get this bolted back up, and then we're going to move to the passenger side. Okay, so that header is all the way bolted up. And then I also had to do some clearancing on this side. Let me show you underneath. So you can see now we have plenty of clearance in here. And then also towards this top piece right here, plenty of clearance right there. And if we go to this side, these headers had to be pushed in a good amount to make room for this lower control arm mount. So now that that is all clearanced and good, everything else fits. You can see this is where the fuel line was running right here on this outside, and see how close that is to the frame rail. There was just no room. So we were planning on going bigger fuel line anyway, because this is going to be pushing a little bit more power than what it was from factory. So that's okay. We just had to move those out of the way. But I mean, look at those headers. They look absolutely gorgeous on the car. I love how thick a tubing we decided to go with. I think it just makes it look so much better, and it's gonna flow so much better now. So now since the headers are bolted up, we're actually gonna move to getting our supercharger reinstalled quick, and then we are going to start the piping that is going to go from the cold side of the supercharger into our intercooler here, and also the piping that'll go here that will relocate our air filter. It finally came in. So we are gonna be able to start miking up all of this part of the intercooler tubing system. Okay, so got the supercharger on. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work on doing this intake pipe first. What I'm gonna have it do is I'm gonna have it come up around like this, come right over here, and then it's gonna come right into this, and that is where my filter is going to be. So it's gonna be something similar to that. Now, the way I'm gonna make it is I have 4-inch pipe. So this pipe right here is actually a little bit too big. So you can see, even if I cut it down, it is gonna be absolutely giant. It definitely would not fit in here. So what the plan is I'm going to do slits in this, and I'm gonna slice it all the way around, probably in this section, make this a tighter radius. That way it can bend and come up about right here. And then I'll chop off the ends, and then I have 4-inch straight pipe that we'll be able to use to build the rest of our intake. So that's how I'm gonna do this first bend, and then I have another one of these that I can cut pieces out of and a straight piece. That way we can make it go where we need it to go, and then the filter will go on the end of that. So we're gonna start on cutting this piece right now and see if we can get this a little bit tighter radius. Okay, so you can see last night I started to make my pie cuts, and man, this is way harder than I thought it would be. So it's just gonna go right here, and then I'm gonna have to keep doing pie cuts all the way around until it comes about right here, just because I have to make this radius so tight. But props to the people that do this professionally, because this is way harder than I thought it would be. It's pretty cool to be able to do, but man, this is difficult. So I'm gonna keep making my pie cuts, keep welding them together until I have a U, and then we'll mock it up on the car. So something I learned in the process of doing this was that you can actually order pie cuts online, which are pretty much the pieces that I have been cutting. So an easier way to do this would just be order those and then weld them all together. So when I get my TIG welder and I start doing stainless, I'm gonna have to test those out to see how easy they are. So I wanted to show you guys a little bit of the behind the scenes process of how I made this intake pipe. A lot of the times I just kind of go with the flow. I know where the start point is, and then I know where I want to end up. So right here I am mocking up the filter, and I'm just kind of going through all of the different options I have to connect the filter to my intake piping. You definitely want to take your time planning out all of your piping, just because in the end all of the tolerances start to build off of each other, so you want to get them in the perfect spot. Okay, so this is right where this piece needs to be. I actually had to close the hood to make sure there was a good amount of clearance from the top of this, and that is as high up as I can get it. Now, looking at the exhaust side of the supercharger, I Don't want my pipe to come out low just because I'm afraid if we hit a bump, the tire may come in contact with the piping. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to modify this piece a little bit. I'm probably gonna slice it right here, make this tube come a little bit closer to the supercharger. That way I can get this tube up and around. You can see there's just barely not enough room right here for me to run that pipe up. So if I bring this over a little bit, then there will be enough room for me to make this bend up here, and then it'll come up over and go into the intercooler. You can also see I have my filter right here, so that'll sit probably about like that. So I'm gonna have to do a couple more pie cuts to get it to go down and into my intake filter.
How did we get here?
Okay, so I made a lot of progress, got this top piece kind of set exactly where I want it. You can see how tight I have it against my supercharger. That way I have enough room to bring this pipe up around. So I started to make the exit side of the supercharger that's gonna go to our intercooler, and you can see I also got this piece kind of cut right here. So now what my plan is I'm probably just gonna notch this here and then do a straight piece from here to here. So other than that, the pressure side of the intercooler piping should pretty much be done. You can see this is where my filter is gonna go. It fits perfectly down here. So now I'm just gonna have to connect the dots. I'll have to bring it down like this and then into that, and it'll sit right there. So pretty cool, but I'm gonna keep going. Probably finish this one up first, and then we'll work on building this one. This one may take me a little bit longer because I'm gonna have to do lots of pie cuts in order to get this tight bend right here. So let's get started. Okay, so check that out. The pressure side is pretty much all the way finished up. You can see it comes from the supercharger going down and then into the intercooler. I'll still have to do that side, but we actually don't have our EFI unit yet or the hat that I need to be able to mock up the rest of it. So we're gonna leave that for now, but I am absolutely loving the way that this is turning out. I think it looks super good. You can see there's a good amount of room right here between the fender and this part, and then the intake piping and the supercharger are pretty close, but that's right where I wanted it. So the next step will be making the connection between the air filter and the intake tubing. So I'm kind of gonna do an S down here and then connect it right up right there. And then that will pretty much finish up this part of the tubing, which is gonna be really cool. So let's get started on that.
How did we get here?
Alrighty, so made some progress, got the intake tubing all the way finished up. You can see it comes in right down there. So now that both of the tubes are tacked into place, I'm actually gonna pull both of them out. We're gonna final weld everything and then reinstall it one more time. guys, so that will pretty much be it for this video on this 1971 Cutlass. Got a ton done. The intercooler is in, the brackets are all fabricated up, everything looks good. Also modified the radiator mount, got the bigger radiator in, so all of my clearances are good and it looks great. And then I also got the supercharger mocked up and all of the piping fabricated, the intake and the compression side all the way finished up. So now what's left is EFI unit is on the way, and then I will be able to do the rest of the piping into it. And then we also are gonna do some custom wheel wells on this, which is gonna be pretty cool. And then that will pretty much finish up the front end of this Cutlass. So we still have tons of work to do on this. We're gonna be building a full exhaust. We still have to run fuel lines. We still have to get our new fuel tank installed with the electric fuel pump. So be sure to stay tuned for the next build series on this. This thing is coming along quick. I'm actually really happy with the way that this piping turned out. I think it looks really cool. And then the way that we're gonna do this, it's just gonna make it all look like a one-of-a-kind build. So thanks so much for watching, and be sure to stay tuned for the next series on this Cutlass. So make sure to subscribe and turn your notifications on. That way you can see when I post these videos. And I will see you guys next time on this build. Peace out.